Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about something that has been suggested by two of my Patreon members, which is thank you Danica and thank you Harry Patel, because both of them recommended that I do a YouTube on the stock market. Now, the stock market is something that I always find challenging to predict with, because how can you say that with so much going on in the economy, prices soaring, so much inflation, how is the stock market doing so well? So when I do astrology, I always have to refer to a chart. And I'm like, what chart do I look at to look at the big picture of the stock market? Now, I make predictions for a particular stock to invest in my magazine, Joni Patry's Astrology Insights. If you don't get my magazine, then you don't know that every month I make a stock pick based on the first trade chart of that particular company onto the stock market. And I tell you the highs and lows and what to expect. Now, is it infallible? It's not perfect, but it does help. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm basing everything on astrology, which, you know, isn't always 100%. I don't care who you are. Astrology is going to be maximum 75 to 80% accurate. Okay, and if you get that much, you're the best astrologer you can be. You know, a lot of people want to ridicule that, but you know, you got to take into account we do have free will, and that's going to alter the effects of things. But for the most part, when you think about the economy, think about all the factors that are going on. It is really hard for anyone. Nobody can accurately predict it, even the best financial advisors in the world. So maybe we can get a little edge with astrology. So let me just do a little disclaimer here. You know, take this with a grain of salt, but I find that it really is helpful. Okay, so remember that you can get my stock picks in my magazine, Joni Patry's Astrology Insights. It's only $9.99 a month, or if you're part of my Patreon, you get it free. The magazine comes out every month with a stock pick. But today, I want to look at the stock market in terms of the big picture. Where are we going with this, and how are we going to fare throughout the next year, 2024. And one thing I do want to bring out is I just have a new addition to my money book. This is the old book, money book. There's a second edition now, How to Make Money Using Astrology. It is now relabeled to Finding Money, Luck, and Good Fortune Using Astrology. Now, in this book, I will tell you how I do the stock market picks and how I look at the transits, the first trade charts, all of that. Plus, in this book, I first wrote this book, I think it was 2008 or 10, because the economy was so difficult. And in it, I have chapters on career, I have chapters on the stock market, I have chapters on transits, when are your luckiest times, as well as billionaires charts and what makes people wealthy and billionaires. And it even goes into so many charts of famous people and how they got their money. So it's really about astrology and money. So if you're interested in those subjects, that's the book for you to look into. And I just had a beautiful second edition come out. So now I want to show you how we can look at the stock market. I always have to have a chart. And so what I'm looking at is the start of the New York Stock Exchange. So of course this is going to be talking about the American stock market per se. And so I'm putting up the chart for when it began, and this is the birth of the stock market. So looking at this chart, where do I see things going? You know what I find that's astounding about this chart is the fact that if you look where the moon sits in this chart, it sits at 28 degrees of Pisces. Why is that significant? Let me tell you why. Because Rahu is there right now. Rahu is about gain. So transiting Rahu is sitting right on the moon. If you take the birth time of this chart, which you can, we have a time, 10:10 a.m. We have, the moon is the chart ruler because the ascendant is in Cancer. But Rahu in the heavens right now is at 28 degrees of Pisces, smack dab on this moon. Now Rahu takes, 18 and a half years to go through all 12 signs. So this is not a common occurrence, right? This doesn't happen all the time. But this represents extremes and change and expansion. So that's why we don't see, amidst all the problems with the economy, the stock market's still up and doing well. Another thing that I wanted to show you about this chart that is astounding is where the Sun and Mercury are sitting, because they are sitting in the sign of Taurus, where transiting Jupiter is going to be going by next May. And Jupiter will be in Taurus. It's going to go into the 11th house in this chart, which is the house that deals with great gains, money. And Jupiter on the Sun and Mercury's got to be about expansion. Plus we have Rahu on the moon. But I will say with Ketu in this chart being 11 degrees of Pisces, as well as Rahu being 11 degrees of Virgo, there is going to be a big crisis hit the United States, as I well know from what I foresaw in my world predictions that I did the beginning of December for 2024. I looked at the whole year. By the way, you can still get that recording on my website, galacticcenter.org. But there is going to be a crisis where Mars is going to go retrograde. And when it does, it's going to be around 10 to 11 degrees of Cancer. This retrograde is going to happen December of 2024. And when that happens, I predict all hell is going to break loose in the United States. And it shouldn't surprise anyone that it's right after the November elections of 2024. Look where we're headed. Look the way people are behaving right now. Get close to when somebody is supposed to have won the elections and the other side will go nuts. There is going to be mass chaos in the United States. Will there be a new president? No. There's going to be complete all-out war about whoever they seem to think is elected. All right, so this is this Mars retrograde. It's going to be around 11 Cancer, and I can't help but notice that Mars will be the degree of Rahu and Ketu in this chart. So this affects the economy. This affects the stock market. This is where it is going to shift in a completely different direction. Okay, so probably, think about how everything's political, right? Everything's political these days, isn't it? So what I'm looking at is they're not going to allow the stock market to crash before the elections. Heavens no, that would make the president look bad. Political rhyme and reason. So it's probably going to stay up. And with Rahu on the moon, aside from all of our opinions about politics, the astrology says it's going to expand and do well. And specifically with Jupiter coming across the Sun and Mercury in the 11th house in this start for the New York Stock Exchange. Pretty astounding. And you know, something else that I found very interesting about this chart is everyone was talking about how the stock market was going to crash, including myself, because it just didn't make sense what's going on in the world. And every time I saw a calamity that was going to strike in the world, I thought it would have repercussions on the stock market, because it usually does, but not according to this chart. And it didn't crash, because look, according to this chart, you have Saturn and Venus in Aries, and Jupiter was in Aries and will continue to be in Aries all the way till next May. So Jupiter is activating the 10th house, which is the social standing, the reputation, how it looks. And it's going to be on Venus, and that will keep the stock market up, according to this chart. So you see, aside from what we think politically or what's going on in the world with wars and everything, you think that would bring it down, but no, this chart says the otherwise. So we got to go with the astrology, right? What is astrology saying? And after May, there's going to be another upswing when Jupiter goes into Taurus. One thing I will say, though, when Uranus comes over Mercury, which will be in June, there's going to be another weird upswing. June and July, Uranus comes over Mercury. Big changes are happening. It will be probably highs up and down. It's going to be very volatile, as it has been. Uranus is the planet of change. But the fact that Jupiter and Uranus are elevated in this chart and in the 11th house means it's not going to crash this year. So that's a very interesting concept, because if you consider all the negative things happening in the world, that usually has an effect on the stock market. And looking at this chart, even right before Jupiter goes into Taurus, it is going to conjunct Uranus at 27 degrees of Aries. This is going to be April 20th. And if you will notice, look where Mars is in this chart, 27 degrees of Leo. What does that mean? That Jupiter is casting a perfect trine in April to that Mars, and Mars sits in the second house of finances and money. It's going to go through another high. Things are happening, and it's probably totally political. I think they said they're going to lower the interest rates. Why? Because they don't want the stock market to crash. It's going to look bad politically. But hey, we have no control over this, right? So let's take advantage and look at where the stock market's going to be going. Astrologically, here it is in the chart, regardless of what's going on politically, wars, economy. No, the stock market's got to stay up, and it will. And it's going to have some spikes, especially with that Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in April. And then watch how it goes up again in May. So to my utmost surprise, I'm kind of surprised looking at this chart, but not really, because I can see that this chart really does reflect what's been going on. So I've got to go with the astrology, get my opinions out of the way, and look at this chart. This is going to be a year that the stock market's going to have some highs. Again, crazy that it is. So let me just say, around April, it'll go up again. Then May, it'll go up. And then we're going to have some volatility in June and July. And then it's going to stay up till we have that major swing of events because of the elections. That is going to be chaos and crazy. And looking at that, yeah, the stock market could have a tumble after the elections, and therefore we might be looking at something entirely different for the year of 2025. But this year, take advantage where you can. And don't forget, if you want to learn astrology from me, go to my university and I will teach you. We have got some classes coming up that are going to teach you how to work with money and astrology. Yes, the university is going to include that. I have all sorts of new exciting classes that are coming up here. So go to universityofvedicastrology.com, become one of my students, and you're going to learn how to use astrology for every aspect of your life to make your life better. That's what astrology is for, and I'm here to help guide you learn it. So we're starting semester 1, January, February. Get ready, sign up. The price is going to be going up, so you better come on board before that happens, and that's going to be happening next month. So get ready, get prepared. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com, become part of our community, and it will pay back way more than you put into it. So with that, I'll close. Thank you.